Now, you're probably familiar with compositing two images together by altering the opacity of the top image so that we can see more or less of the one underneath it. It's the principle behind which crossfades work. But there are other ways of integrating images. Obviously, you can do picture-in-picture and various other kind of things. But a useful function, and it's used quite a lot in static or still images. You also find it in After Effects, but you can use it in Premiere as well, is to vary the blend mode, i.e. the relationship between the two images. And sometimes it takes information about the light level from the top one, or the saturation, or various other kind of things. It ensures that the composite image is never darker or lighter than either of the two images, and various other kind of functions. And these are all gathered together in what are called blend modes. And what I've done, rather than go through each of them at a time, I've provided a link on this wiki page to Adobe's guide. It goes through what each of the blend modes does, but it really is, you're not going to remember all of these. It's as much really a case of experimenting with them. Sometimes a simple reduction of the opacity is such that it looks a bit naff. Whereas if you choose the right particular blend mode, the relationship between the upper and the lower image is transformed. So just to illustrate this, this is an image that really doesn't have much relationship with the stuff existing on the timeline. So I've got this picture of somebody, I'm sure, Shaq, somebody, it says. I've no idea who this person is. So I've got this image here, and typically if I click on this top image here, normally, and we might keyframe this or do whatever we want. There's the opacity there, and typically, you might set it at 50%. There we go. We can see both of them. What's the relationship between them? Well, they're both sort of there, and then I can alter that over time. But so let's set it around about 50%, and then just look at the different effect of other blend modes. You can call these up by using this drop-down box here, and you can see there's a shed load of these things. Typically, the one used quite a lot in compositing is screen. But you might want to use something like color burn. Now that gives a much more kind of textured look to the relationship between the foreground and the background. And think about how you might combine this as well with masking that I've talked about elsewhere as well. So you could feather this so the face could be quite visible in the frame with that particular texture, maybe at the midpoint, and then you could feather the edges of that. We could do something like that. I'm not advocating for any of these in particular, but just to illustrate that you have different options available to you. So that in itself is quite interesting. I'd be inclined there almost to crop out the rest of the image. You've got this nice, almost acts as a sort of mask around the image there. And you start to begin to see, particularly if you keyframe this as well, all manner of kind of creative possibilities and creating quite abstract or arresting images rather than a simple manipulation of straightforward opacity become apparent.